All right, guys, we have got our Premier League Week 2 preview here as we kind of check out our second week. We'll talk through each game. We'll make a very light prediction as we have not made any bets yet, though I'm pretty close to a few. So we're going to go through all 10 games, see what we kind of come up with, and go from there. So tomorrow, or at the time of making this tomorrow, the first game of the week is on the Friday. It's Crystal Palace hosting Manchester City. Man City are slight favorites here, minus 142 on the money line. You can get -1 at plus 114, the over-under of 3, minus 135 to the under. This is an interesting game. Now, Man City, again, struggled a little bit in their opening game to Bournemouth. Took them 2 late goals to find themselves a winner eventually, as they scored in the 84th and the 90th minute to win that game 2-1. Or 84th and 91st, something like that, to win that game 2-1 late. Bournemouth scored pretty early and then tried holding on and couldn't. Crystal Palace went to Everton and they did lose 2-0, but again, I thought they created pretty well on the break, particularly early. I thought they had a majority of the good chances right before Everton scored, and then kind of struggled to kind of get back into that game a little bit. So how I feel about this particular game is that if Crystal Palace, who have been decent at home, and again, I think are going to have a pretty decent year and haven't gone into Europe yet. We're not talking about any of these teams dealing with Europe or anything like that. I think they can cause a few problems here against this Manchester City defense. And again, there are moments where this City team kind of get put all over the place and stuff. So there is some bold teams to score out there at like minus 152-ish. At the last time I looked, there's also, I'm not sure, what number you're going to get on anything, but like Crystal Palace to score first seems like something that could be useful as well. Again, I think Palace can come out here and score. We'll see what ends up happening long term. But again, both teams to score minus 156 right now. In terms of, scoring first, I'm not sure what number you're likely to get here, but all in all, I think that could be worth a shot because I think you're going to get, a decent number here and there. You can get Palace to score on their own at minus 235. Again, I think they do. I think City end up doing, and despite how long it took, City did end up kind of getting over the line pretty quickly in that. They did create 2.25 expected goals, and it may have come in a chasing mood, but Manchester City are a team who are going to go ahead and try and win all their games. This is not a team that's going to accept a point pretty much anywhere, so they're always going to be chasing games regardless of what happens to score goals. And I think they can score here. Again, Palace a little bit all over the place. I do worry a little bit about the idea that Palace after Everton scored and kind of shut that game off, it was a struggle for Palace. Now, when Everton were holding the ball early and Palace were kind of playing on the break a little bit, and there was Everton were a little bit more open because they were trying to score themselves, then the game kind of got like that. But in a world where Everton were done and Everton just wanted to shut the game down, Palace really couldn't do much. So there is a bit of a worry that City could score here first and kind of just shut this game off a little bit. But I kind of think in terms of the game at a 0-0 game state, I think Palace could cause some problems in that. I am struggling to kind of find team to score first just in terms of a bet, but I really don't hate Palace if you can get a good plus number there. Let me just try one more area here and then we'll see if we can get it, but not even getting nothing there, which is kind of weird. First goal, maybe a score first. You might be able to get something out of it. But all in all, I think that would be the way to go about it. Um, but I guess I'm not really finding anything right now. And it's just it is kind of annoying because this feels like something that is relatively popular to find. Um, but in but for whatever reason, we are not finding it. But again, that's the kind of game state I see. That why I don't hate an under, but 3 feels like where this game ends. This feels like 1-1 or 2-1 either way, which is why I don't necessarily want to bet the under. I don't think there will be 4 goals in this game, but also in a game where I prefer both teams to score, I'm a little bit less interested in I'm a little bit less interested in that and more interested in, like, again, just trying to score first or Palace to score first. Um, I can't find it anywhere, which is so crazy to me because I feel like I come across this pretty pretty often. Um, this is exact goals, first half goals. I don't mind that necessarily. Palace first half plus 152. So that's probably the range you're gonna get. Um, in the plus 100s. Time of first goal. Oh, here we go. Plus 183 for Palace to score the first goal. So I really don't hate a look at that. But yeah, that's the Palace game. Again, I kind of lean 2-1 either way, 1-1. I think Palace can cause problems in neutral game states. That's why I prefer a shot at Palace to score first, like a plus 183 again, which we found is a decent number. I prefer that to both teams to score because I think if City get ahead, this game could quiet down pretty quickly. And that's not necessarily a game state I want Palace in a both teams to score situation. So perhaps a small shot on Palace to score first, but that's what we got for that one. Next, we have Liverpool and Forest. The 7:30 kickoff, the early kickoff on Saturday. This is an interesting one. I don't have a particular lean on this. Liverpool, as we saw in the first game against Newcastle, are going to struggle in transition until the team kind of figures out the system a little bit, and that'll get figured out again along the way. We mentioned in our preview it might take a while for this team to kind of figure it all out. This is a new system and new training and new fitness stuff and a variety of different things with a squad that's a little bit funky for the moment, but all in all, it might take a little bit of time and teams could hit them on the break. Forest are a team that are going to be pretty comfortable sitting deep and waiting to get hit and waiting to hit on the break, particularly away from home. Um, so this is not a game I'm super interested in. This is another one that if you really wanted to take a look at Forest to score first, maybe, or something in that vein, perhaps. But all in all, this is not particularly a game I'm super interested in. Liverpool are minus 186 on the money line. That's a bit heavy. And, -1 at minus 119. Again, with the way the team is currently set up, I'm not super in love with that. I'm not super in love with the over or the under or anything. This is a very much do not touch for me. And I'm kind of more interested in seeing how Liverpool play through this game instead of trying to bet it. Bournemouth and Everton. This is an interesting one. I think Bournemouth are going to be fine this year. And I thought they played pretty well in the first game. They took their chance when it came. They didn't have a ton of chances going forward, and it was very City-esque. When you are on the road at the Etihad, they are going to have a ton of the ball. Unfortunately, though, down the line, they kind of let it go a little bit, and City scored 2 late ones and kind of won that one. Everton, on the other hand, I thought, again, started, and they're playing a little bit more, I don't want to say open because it's not open, but Palace were creating before the goals that shut the game down, and I thought Palace were creating a little bit there. So this will be probably a little bit different, probably a little bit more of the ball for Bournemouth. a little bit less for Everton. Um, Two teams I'm not exactly 100% on board with either way in terms of just where they're going to end up and how they're going to play all year long. Well, I know how Everton are going to play, but in terms of Bournemouth at home in these kind of games, I'm more interested in watching these as well. Like, in terms of line, you're getting boom, 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 boom. You're getting Bournemouth at plus 111, and Everton at plus a quarter of a goal essentially, or half a goal at minus 134. Over under 2.5, pretty much split. This is very much a pick 'em type in terms of total for me. A lean toward Bournemouth, but not enough to bet. That's kind of where we are in the market as well. So another one I'm probably not super interested in betting, and I'm more interested in kind of watching these teams early, and seeing kind of where they end up. Coventry and Hull, two newly promoted sides. Hull off a nice win to start their season. They traveled to Coventry, who got battered in the opening day at Arsenal, which was a really tough fixture for them. But Hull played a lot better than anybody expected, or United played a lot worse. Either way, Hull got the 3 points, and that's a good start to the year. This game I do have thoughts on. I don't know if I'm going to bet it, though, because it is a little bit different here. But both of these games ended 0-0 when they played each other last year. There wasn't a ton created on the Hull side. Hull created like 1.1 xG across both sides, or across both games. They scored both of their goals against United to start the season from set pieces, and other than that, weren't creating a ton. And I think Coventry can have a lot of the ball here. So I do lean Coventry. I'm not going to bet Coventry outright. Minus 113 is a bit heavy for a team I'm not sure is very good. But the over-under here is 2.5. I don't mind to look at the under, but both teams to score no is one I don't have a problem looking at either. In terms of how I think this goes, this feels like a 1-0 or a 0-0 again. And again, I don't mind the under, but both teams to score kind of feels like, or both teams to score no is kind of where I'm feeling. Both halves over 1.5 is an interesting thought. But again, I'm not super in love with the idea that Hull genuinely come into this game and have a lot of run on the offensive end here. So both teams to score no is probably where I'm going to end up going. In terms of the under, again, I don't mind an under 2.5, but again, I'm still not expecting this Hull team to be very good, and I kind of need to see a couple more looks at this team before I go ahead and say something like they're going to be decent in the Premier League. But I'm getting plus money on both teams to score no on a tie that finished 0-0 two times last year, where one team only created 1.1 xG across both ties. So I don't mind both teams to score no there. Again, I have not bet that yet. And Coventry, again, were really good in the championship last year. But look like, again, you played Arsenal. It's tough to kind of gauge how that offense is going to look. So I don't want necessarily an under, because who knows? Coventry can come in here and just be that far ahead of Hull and put 3 by them, and that'll be that. But again, if I do play anything, it'd be both teams to score no. We'll see. Haven't played that yet, but that's kind of where I'm leaning on that one. That feels like a 1 or 2-0 win for Coventry to me. Tottenham and Newcastle. This is an interesting one. Two teams that are definitely changing things as things go. Newcastle with a fully rotated side before. Tottenham, who are not who they're gonna be yet. The over-under on this is 3 at minus 119, plus 130 for Tottenham, plus 190 for Newcastle. This one feels as well to me like an under. Again, both teams kind of got out to funky starts. Tottenham went into Brentford and kind of got beat by a team that's settled and ready to go, and they're not. Newcastle played a pretty up and down game with the Liverpool side, who are very much new and trying new things out. Same as Newcastle, who have a completely new midfield and stuff. But Newcastle also scored both their goals on breaks, and I'm not so sure Tottenham are going to let that happen. Tottenham are slowly getting guys back. They played pretty well in the cup for the most part, but while they did score 5, there were pretty long stretches of that game where they were pretty slow. And I think while they're waiting for offensive talent to show up, Savinho played a couple minutes the other day, or Savio, whatever. Marmouche is coming over. But they're playing a lot of Tell up front, who I don't like very much, and they're playing a lot of, Solanke, who's kind of getting his legs back under him, and there's, Newcastle again, we're hitting on the break, and I'm not so sure Tottenham are going to leave a ton of spots open on the break as they kind of tighten themselves up a little bit to kind of get going. So I'd lean under here. Other than that, again, I haven't played that. Other than that, this is kind of a stay away. There is too much new and too much rotating going on in terms of personnel from last year with these two sides. So I'm not super in love with playing that under, and I'm not sure I'm going to as of yet. But all in all, we can lean under, but not touching it otherwise. Then we go on to Chelsea and Brighton. The Chelsea played a wild game the other day against Fulham, and then they played a more down-to-earth game today. Was it today or yesterday? Where they played Luton, and it finished 2-0. That was a little bit less hectic, and Luton are not going to push this defense a little bit, but as much, but a little bit less hectic. And Brighton, again, after a 4-0 drubbing over Aston Villa, are a team, again, who I kind of like defensively. If we go back to my numbers, that was 26-25. In terms of expected goals against, Brighton were giving up what they get in the 28 games I have listed here. They gave up 38 expected goals, so 1.1-ish. Not a ton. Chelsea in the same vein defensively, and they were okay defensively. And again, I'm not pointing out that these teams are like elite defensively or anything, but Brighton can go on the road and can shut up shop pretty well for the most part. And in terms of what they are and what they can be, the games can get pretty pretty light. There's a 1-0 win over Sunderland on the road here from last year. They go to Brentford, it's 2-0. They go to Villa, it's 1-0. The Fulham game a little bit heavier. At Liverpool 2-0, at City 1-1. There are a lot of games where they kind of go on the road and they can close things up a little bit. 2-0 at Burnley, light. These are, we're approaching club friendlies and stuff like that. But I don't hate, again, another under, and I know we're kind of like thinking a lot of unders, and it might just be one of those low scoring weeks, in my head at least. But we'll see in in that range. It's the over under is again 3 here, but Chelsea, again, we're really open. I'm not expecting Xabi Alonso to be that way all year. My expectation is that this could be a team long term that shuts it down a little bit better than that. And Brighton did score 4 against Villa, but 2 were given to them, and Villa were kind of falling apart a little bit, and then they closed the game down there. So I don't mind a first half under here maybe, or a full game under. I don't lean any particular way on side. Chelsea are minus 116 here, and I'm not particularly ready to get this Chelsea side to a point where I feel comfortable playing them as a minus favorite against a team like Brighton, no matter where that game is. But again, another one where I kind of lean under, and as someone who has a full season long over, I'm not liking how I'm thinking through a lot of these games. But again, we will see how they kind of end up here. Again, lean under, but this kind of feels like a 1-1 or a 0-0 to me. Leeds and Brentford is the next one. You're gonna hate me, but another one where I kind of lean under, but only first half. This one I don't want full game for. Leeds full game unders are not something I particularly love giving out, because they do kind of tend to fall away a little bit. But this got played on March, and this game finished 0-0. Both teams here 0.46 xg for Brighton, for Brentford, 0.52 for Leeds. That was a very, very low event game. Brentford are another similar to Brighton who can go on the road and kind of shut games up. They were okay defensively in spurts, and some of these teams that don't come out of blocks kind of tend to cause problems for Brentford offensively. Teams that put in a lot of effort in the press tend to cause problems. Again, there were very, very little in the game they played against each other last year at the Leeds Stadium there. But again, Brentford on the road are capable. 1-0 with Villa. They had, let's see, there's a 2-0 with Forest here, the 2-0 with Chelsea. And then we're kind of just poking back into the Premier League here. And while they did create quite a bit, again, 3.87 against the Tottenham side that's kind of moving around a little bit. Leeds and Forest just played 2 games with each other where almost nothing happened pretty much the entire time. Leeds did win both of them, and I don't want to play Leeds here because, again, it's a little bit funky, and it's pretty much a pick 'em, plus 155 for Leeds and plus 170 for Brentford, and I don't want to pick Leeds here. But I don't mind a Leeds to score first if you can find that somewhere. Again, the under I don't mind. This is 2.5. It's tough to me, not tough to see 3 goals here, but again, Brentford can defend, and while Leeds can defend from the front in particular. So first half unders for this game, I don't mind. The problem with the first half under is that you're going to get some pretty heavy numbers because the total is just 2.5. So here, yeah, you're getting over under 1 in this one. Exact goals in the first half. You can play plus 200 for 0, or maybe you can find 1.25 somewhere for the under. 1.25 for the under first half isn't that bad, and I don't hate that too much. Let me see if I can find the problem is you have to find a 1.25 because the 1.5. Yeah, under 1.5 is minus 250. Under half is plus 210. So if you can find a middle, maybe. But Leeds, front of the season press causes problems defensively, and will continue to do so, I imagine, particularly in the early stages of this season, or of any season really so far. 3 more games we got here. Sunderland are playing Fulham at home. Sunderland with a late loss to Ipswich last week. Fulham with their chaotic up and down game against Chelsea. I don't have much here. This game is lined at what I assume is plus 148 for Sunderland, plus 202 for Fulham. It's a bit of a close to a pick. The leans under 2.5 at minus 124. I don't know. This kind of feels like a 1-1 to me. That being said, I'm not particularly interested in betting any of this Fulham stuff right now. They were very much all over the place against Chelsea, and they were a little bit more expansive than I expected them to be, and they're a little bit less solid than they were under Marco Silva. So I need to see Fulham play some games out before I really, really have an attempt here to kind of see what they are. Sunderland, again, a loss at Ipswich opening day, and this is their first game at home. I think they're going to have a bad year, and I'm not particularly interested in playing any of them in a favorites kind of role. Excuse me. So, yeah, this is a stay away. There are a couple stayaways for me here. This one, the Liverpool game, the Tottenham game for the most part. There are some stayaways for me this week, but that is kind of one of them. Next, we have Manchester United at home to Ipswich. This is an interesting one. Now, I thought United didn't play particularly well against Hull the other day, as shown by the score line. But Ipswich didn't, weren't too bad. Again, 1.8 xG, created 0.66 against in their game against Sunderland, which is a pretty good return, genuinely. The only goal they gave up was a free kick. The problem is I'm not exactly sure what this looks like going forward for Ipswich on the road in these scenarios. In terms of United, again, they gave up 2 goals, both via um, both via set pieces, which makes me kind of want to play Ipswich to not score here. I just don't love this defense as a whole. And I do expect United to hold a pretty significant chunk of the ball. They hold a pretty significant chunk of the ball um, at home quite a bit. And that would be my expectation here. And I expect Ipswich to kind of sit back. But also, there might be a little bit more space for United here. We'll see what kind of formation we kind of get out of Ipswich. But in terms of the lineup, the first time they played 4, they played in CISO behind a striker, which is, 4 forwards essentially, 2 midfielders, 4 defenders. I lean toward United winning this game and winning this game kind of comfortably. 2 or 3-0. They are, again, favorites. The over-under's 3, minus 252 favorites, minus 1.5 on the goal line at plus 111. I don't mind. Probably going to play a little bit of Manchester United minus 1, but I need to look a little bit more at Ipswich. If Ipswich are going to score here, then minus 1 is going to be, you're going to need 3 out of United, and I'm not so sure I love the manager enough to kind of predict that they're going to be fine offensively for the most part. I don't like the idea of Dorgu playing on the left. Hopefully we get Rashford here, but I think United can score. So if we're getting like a decent number on them to score a couple times, maybe we run it again. Again, we played over 1.5 against Hull, and that didn't turn out particularly well, but also they're home here. They're going to have a majority of the ball. It's another newly promoted side off the back of a win. And while over 1.5 for United is probably just not like worth it at minus 235, probably not. Perhaps Manchester United minus 1 with the draw protect or with the push protection if they win by exactly 1 is probably the way to go if we can find a good number on that. So probably going to end up with that. Haven't bet it just yet. And then the final game of the week, Aston Villa and Arsenal. This was in range for an Arsenal moneyline bet at one stage. It is no longer that. It's at minus 200 now. And probably not worth my time to bet Arsenal on the money line. Again, it was like minus 140 early in the week, and then the weekend happened, and Villa got absolutely slaughtered, and they continue to sell players and bring new guys in, and everything changing all around them currently. Makes me less interested in betting this particular game, and we have some Arsenal top 2 stuff. We might just root for Arsenal to win here, but in terms of a bet, I could see this going a variety of different ways. Again, Villa have struggled here, or have struggled against Arsenal in certain spots. Excuse me. Arsenal have put 3-4 by them relatively routinely, and it's a Villa side that are, again, changing guys around, moving bodies in and out, lots of different things happening for them, and they're playing a team that are set and focused, one of the few teams that came into the season ready to go from the jump, and one of the good teams that came in from the season ready to go, ready from the jump. So I'm not going to lay minus 1 with Arsenal here, though I think they win the game. The over-under 2.5 lean to the over. I don't want to play both teams to score. Again, like the other day, Villa were playing like a lineup that was, a bbit all over the place. They played, here we go, at Brighton, and they played Buendia up front, Barkley in behind. Hemmings is younger. McGinn on the right. Gomez got sent off and won't be playing that game. It's a lot. So I don't love the idea of backing Villa here. The numbers kind of creeped out for Arsenal a little bit that I don't want to play too much, and it's a little bit all over the place. So that's a stay away for me, though I think Arsenal do win the game. It's a stay away, kind of just in where it is right now. So that's it. That's the preview. We'll see what these games look like. Again, it's very, very early, and there are so many changes to a variety of these teams that our thoughts are a little bit few and far between until we get some more um, data on these teams here. But should be an interesting week once again. And there we go. Premier League preview for week 2.